Okay, so as of recording, it's 17th of September, 2024. Megalopolis is, after 40 years, finally set to release on the 27th. So I've decided I'm going to try and do a big video about um, a lot of what's gone on behind the scenes and, more recently in front of the scenes with uh, getting Megalopolis developed. Um, a lot of that concerning Coppola's own troublesome old school work practices, as well as just his issues with studios and like finding a distributor. Um, I feel like this is gonna end up being quite long. I've got a script here that I've written and I'm gonna talk about, and I'm gonna read from this, and then I'm gonna go into the element that I'm talking about, and then I'm gonna move on to the next part. Um, but the script I've written is like 2.5 pages fucking long. It's pretty long, which is to be expected because he's been writing this film before my fucking mother was born. So um, it's to be expected that this might take a while to get through everything. I feel like with this video, there's probably quite a good chance that I might end up messing stuff up. But given the scale of this film and given how long this film has been rumored and talked about and like in production, out of production, in production again, I feel like it would be a mistake for me to not do a video like this. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna stop wasting time anyways and just start reading from the script. Okay, so Francis Ford Coppola's modern day Roman epic Megalopolis is set to release on 27th of September, after more than 40 years of stalled and stuttered development. The film updates the Catilina Conspiracy from the Roman Republic to modern-day New York City. The development of this project has encountered numerous battles, including Coppola's decades-long fight with Hollywood, the halting of production after 9/11, a harshly received preview from studio heads, and most alarmingly, allegations of sexual misconduct on the set. Somehow, despite everything, the film has finally emerged from its near half-a-century development, but critics appear divided over whether the movie is good. But before we are even privy to the movie itself, how did Coppola's pet project reach this point in 2024 of division and controversy after controversy? When he describes this film as one that he was that when he describes this film as one that he hopes will start a conversation about improving society. It's my dream that Megalopolis will become a New Year's Eve perennial favourite, with audiences discussing afterwards not their new diets or resolutions not to smoke, but rather this simple question: is the society in which we live the only one available to us? He said in an interview. I'm going to delve into details on every controversy that this production has encountered, and frankly, every controversy Coppola has encountered himself. A lot of those controversies have been, you know, self self enforced by Coppola. It hasn't been an outside force conspiring against Coppola, as he says in interviews. It's Hollywood working against him. I don't think it is. A lot of it is just stuff he's done wrong himself. Um, but yeah, we're gonna try and go through every controversy possible, um, because there's been a lot in getting this film developed, uh, and I feel like there should be a lengthy record of everything that has kind of gone wrong with this product over the years. Um, it's not. But before I start reading again from the script, I will say I don't think it's entirely surprising that someone like Coppola has taken 40 years to do this project, and I don't think it's entirely surprising that a project he's been developing for 40 years has is resulted in such a torrid like PR nightmare. Um, because even if you are excited for this film, which I'm interested in seeing it, I'm not entirely sure what to think about the trailer. I don't really think it actually shows that much. which you don't want a trailer to show you very much, but also I'm just not entirely sure that it shows enough for me to really know what's going on. But yeah, I still think nevertheless that a record of this kind is necessary for such a important film as this, including the fact that this quite probably will be Francis Ford Coppola's last film. If not, he's probably got one more in him, and then that's it. So I feel like this is important, even just as a piece of film history. But yeah, let's get into the early development of the film. In the late 1970s, early 1980s, Coppola began thinking about making a Roman epic, researching topics, different eras of the Republic, and different public figures. He settled on the Catilina Conspiracy, an attempted coup d'etat led by aristocrat and politician Lucius Sergius Catilina to overthrow his rival and current consul Cicero, whom he had been defeated by in the Senate election. Catilina desired to wipe away debt for both the poor and wealthy, a move seen by Coppola as the push for a utopia where both sets of social classes could live lives unshackled from financial pressure. In the Megalopolis production notes, Coppola argues that much of the scholarship and historical accounts of the conspiracy are framed by Cicero's victory over Catilina and his position as consul influencing how others write about the event. With Megalopolis, he desires to let Catilina, although I should note, in frame, Coppola changes Catilina's name to Caesar, because he believes that in Roman history, Caesar is the most well-known and recognisable figure. That makes complete sense. I don't think that there's much issue around that. So we should probably, when it comes to the film, probably refer to it as the Caesar conspiracy, not the Cataline conspiracy. But anyways, he desires to let Catilina tell his own story and make him the protagonist. Coppola's first proper attempt to develop the film came in 2001 when he began shooting pre-production footage in New York, but stopped after 9/11, considering it to be too distasteful to talk about utopia in a city reeling and grieving. For many years, the film was considered dead until he picked it up again in the 2010s and began seeking funding and a cast. In order to finance the film, Coppola sold his winery. His status as the financier of the film gave him complete creative control as well as financial control, and did not require him to have standard practice departments that Hollywood studios are required to have, such as a HR department. Okay, so I think the stuff around 9/11 I thought was interesting, purely from a historical point of view. I don't think we really need to go into it too much, although we can probably say that 9/11 itself probably contributed to a lot of the hell that this film went through. If it had been in if Coppola had been working on this film from 2001 and say it had came out in 2004, 2005, then I think that there's probably a higher chance that there wouldn't be as much controversy around this film, partly because AI wouldn't have existed, and also partly because there would have been less controversy around this film, because I feel like there would have been less impetus for Coppola to strike out on his own and outright reject the Hollywood industry, whereas in his old age he seems to have rejected it entirely, and that's why he's the sole financier of the film. This position that he's put himself in as the financier of the film has put himself into a lot of the controversies that he's experienced. We'll get into it more as we go on, but problems like the art department, the sexual misconduct, and the AI trailer, a lot of that falls on Coppola's shoulders because he is the guy fronting the film. With the sexual misconduct stuff, he's not required to have a HR department because it's not a private company necessarily, it's just coming out of his own pocket. So with that, if it had been done by a studio, there's much more likelihood that there would have been a HR department on set at all times that would have, been there to negotiate these sorts of events where he's kissing crew members and cast members, and it might not have necessarily stopped that entirely, but it certainly would have improved it because there would be a HR consultant there to say, this isn't acceptable, we need to stop doing this, or this film isn't going to be able to come out and be successful the way we want it to. The other stuff, the AI trailer, even though Lionsgate have blamed that on a marketing consultant and said that that was his decision, ultimately it's been reported that Coppola is also financing the marketing campaign, so we can blame it on this marketing consultant all we want. That trailer had to pass through Coppola because it's his money, so it doesn't make any sense to exclude him from that process. He is responsible for that. That's his decision, ultimately. He gave it the final go-ahead, even if he didn't completely, fully comprehend what the AI was doing, maybe, which I wouldn't be surprised by, because he's an 85-year-old man. How much does an 85-year-old man know about AI? I'm not too sure. I think a lot of these issues we can kind of trace back through Coppola's entire career, to be fair, because he's always had these issues with Hollywood, whether it be The Conversation, The Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now, any of those films. He's always, creating this divide between himself and Hollywood. From so early on with The Godfather, he refused to do that film for so long because he didn't want to be penned in as an Italian director doing Italian-American films. And so I feel like a lot of the issues that Coppola has are self-enforced. And whilst this video could be about the film directly, and we could just be talking about Megalopolis, Coppola makes it about himself. He makes it about his controversies, which, he's an auteur, he's an artist, he is the most important person on any of his sets. I think for a lot of films that's not true. If you look at other directors, a lot of the time it's the writer, a lot of the time it's the actors on screen. But with Coppola, he needs to be that guy, so he has to create controversy around himself. It's the same thing if you look at athletes like Ronaldo, who has a massive ego. The controversy needs to be there in order for him to be the center of attention. So I'm not entirely surprised that he chose to be the financier, so that he could help bring about his own egotistical vision of a utopia and not have other people interfering in that. But let's move on to the next section, which is about the VFX team being fired. The first obstacle that the production encountered was Coppola's old school style, old school in quotes, that left some like Aubrey Plaza excited and creatively fulfilled because of Coppola's spontaneity and willingness to experiment. Others claimed it to be exhausting and said that Coppola was unwilling to speed up the process through new technology, nor was he willing to stick to a script, leaving people confused and bewildered. These came to a head when the VFX department disagreed creatively with Coppola. With him believing they were too formulaic and Marvel-inspired. Instead, he desired something fresh and original. Coupling this with his need to stay on budget, he could not reach, again, his need to stay on budget because he was the financier. He couldn't go over, otherwise he would be made bankrupt. He could not reach agreement about one person leaving the team, so instead the entire department left. That's the entire art department, I should have specified. In quotes given to Empire magazine, Coppola expresses his desire to remain as the final say on all things, believing that the art department was too rigid and system-based to fit his vision. In quotes, I said, "Let's face it, I'm the only one who knows what the director has in mind. I don't care what you think. Also, I'm not the I'm not only the director, I was also putting up the money. So to be told that I had to have a huge art department I didn't want was absurd to me. So I feel like with this element, I do sort of understand where he's coming from. I can see what he's saying about, like, I don't want the art department because I want it to be done the way I want it to be done. But when he's saying we need to stay on budget, and then is saying, well, we need to do it this way, that's going to take, maybe 6 months compared with using new technology that'll take 2 weeks. I can understand why that's a bit conflicting, and it feels like he needs to almost choose one. And I feel like the dichotomy here is he needs to he should have either relinquished his role as financier and brought someone else in who could have possibly provided a bigger budget, maybe lost a bit of that control, but then he would be able to extend the sets or the production dates and allow him to take more time rather than use new technology, or he has to accept that there's new technology to be used that will make it cheaper and will shorten the production time. I just don't think it's possible for there to be both. Now, I understand him saying it's Marvel inspired and it was formulaic, so why should I have it here? Because I'm the director, I'm the person putting up the budget, so if I don't need the art department, then I'll fire it. At the same time, that's not a good PR look. And if you're gonna be the director of the film, the writer of the film, and then also the financier, I think you also have to be the person thinking about how does this look optically. So if you didn't want that art department, why did you hire them in the first place? And I understand that over the course of a film's production, say it lasts 2 years, 3 years, a lot can change in that time. So maybe you thought you needed a department at first, and then they come on set and their vision doesn't align with yours. I understand that. But again, the optics on this just don't look great. And I feel like he needs to, with a decision like this, he needed to choose which direction he was going with before production started. And instead he just said, oh, we're going to go with the art department. And then when that didn't work out, he just sort of did away with the optics and fired them. And again, this thing of he's an auteur with a massive ego lends to this almost need for controversy, or this lack of care about controversy, saying, well, I'm the director, I'm the financier, I'm the writer, so I don't care what they think, I know what's best for my production. That's fair enough. But we're moving away from, already before the production has actually even started, we're moving away from the film itself and we're moving towards your issues on set. So what is actually the vision here? Because we're not talking about the vision, we're talking about you. And that's the issue that I mainly have with decisions like this. It's fine if you don't want an art department, but you have to make that decision before you come on set. So I've tried to do it this timeline chronologically, of course. So we're going to come on to the sexual misconduct allegations, which, you could argue should have gone last, but given the way that the timeline is played out, and given that there are two other big events in the timeline of this film, I've just decided to put them afterwards. But there is no question that these misconduct allegations are the biggest part or the biggest controversy surrounding Megalopolis, and these are the ones that need to be considered the most sensitive, let's say. So in an article from The Guardian, just months before the release of Megalopolis, Coppola was accused of sexual misconduct on set. They claimed that Coppola had allegedly pulled women into him to sit on his lap. On a separate occasion during the filming of a nightclub scene, he tried to hug and kiss female extras. They allege that his reasoning behind the behaviour was an attempt to, quote, get them in the mood, end quote. In an article from The Hollywood Reporter, they allege that he said, quote, sorry if I come up to you and kiss you, just know it's solely for my pleasure, end quote. However, during a Rolling Stone article more recently, he outright denies everything. What he did not address, however, was the leaking of two clips from said nightclub scene that show him kissing extras on set. Whether there is anything defensible about Coppola in this situation is up for personal opinion and interpretation. What is not up for interpretation is the hard establishment of this reality. Francis Ford Coppola did hug and kiss extras on set without their consent. So, when I say that, I feel like elements of this, of these allegations are up for debate or own personal opinion. What I don't mean is that these aren't sexual misconduct. Given what we see on these clips, it is sexual misconduct because the faces of the women, it's blurry, it's sort of away from them, but at least one of those women clearly outright denies him, rejects him, and just it isn't up for it. Even if any of the women are willing to kiss him, he's the director of the film. He's the financier of the film. He's paying their wages. So it's not acceptable. It puts them in a position where they don't feel like they can get out of that. So what I think is up for interpretation is, do you just think that this is because of an old school mindset where, you know, he was maybe doing this in the 60s and 70s on his film sets and thought, oh, it was fine then, so it must be fine now? Or has he always known that this was wrong and he just doesn't care? That's what I think is up for interpretation. If you think it's the former, then I think that you're probably looking at it and going, well, he's an 85-year-old man, so it's unacceptable, it is sexual misconduct, but we sort of just need to let it go, I suppose, and not deem it acceptable, but sort of accept that when you're 85 years old, you probably just are like, yeah, I like, you have these old school views. It's the same as when you go to a dinner and your grandparents say something racist. You know it's not acceptable, but based on the time that they grew up in, it was acceptable then. So what are you going to do about it? You can argue with them, but the chances are you aren't going to change their opinion. Now, personally, I think it's hard for me to watch this film when it comes out and not remember what I've seen in these clips. I think it's especially, I'm struggling like to talk about it because I think this is more like serious than what I can just talk about here on a YouTube video. I think that Francis Ford Coppola quite clearly is a deeply, deeply flawed man, and that this is probably the most brazen and, I would say, potentially legally troubling example of that behaviour. Despite that, you can't pass up the fact that he has had a major impact on cinema. Whether or not this film has the same sort of impact is to be seen. But nevertheless, despite that impact, he has still committed acts of sexual misconduct. And I don't think I can look past that personally, even when I go watch the film. Which I will watch it because that's what I want to do here. That's what I enjoy. But that should be at the forefront of all of our minds, and it will be at the forefront of mine personally. It's hard to move on from that to it's hard to move on from that to another element of this film's controversies, because everything else pales in comparison. We're going to do it nevertheless, but again, with stuff like this, and this more than anything else, Coppola clouds our opinions on his films and his vision with everything that he does offset or off the camera, because we are forced to talk about it because he makes us talk about it. It's the same as, Kanye's music. He makes us talk about the way he goes on when he's not making music, because he has that ego, and maybe he has mental health problems as well. I'm not saying Coppola does, I don't know. But he makes us talk about the things that he's saying, that he's doing, and then that takes away from his vision. And it's so interesting to me that he just fails to see how he's doing that, and how he's making his own projects less commercially and critically viable because of his actions. But yeah, I struggle with this one the most, obviously, because it's sexual misconduct allegations. And again, Coppola does it to himself. I would prefer, in what is, I think, going to be my third video on this channel, outside of my uni work, I would prefer not to have to talk about this, but I feel like it's necessary. If I'm going to be a news channel, I'm not going to hide away from this. But I would prefer to just be able to talk about films rather than the actual films on screen, and maybe their themes and stuff like that, rather than having to talk about sexual misconduct allegations. But that's what's gone on in this film, so I'm not going to shy away from that. It's just disappointing to see. But yeah, next is the March 28th screening to potential distributors. So this is when Coppola premiered the film for the likes of Lionsgate, Legendary, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Disney, all these different companies to try and get funding for the marketing campaign. So there are two final events that we should mention that have marred the film's release even more so than what we've already seen, and have created problems for both Coppola and the eventual distributor, Lionsgate. The first of these events was the March 28th preview of the film to potential distributors. At this screening, Coppola wanted to convince a distributor that the picture was worth fronting an ambitious marketing campaign worth up to $100 million. Excuse me. It is worth mentioning that there was very little about this film that could be classed as marketable to the mainstream Marvel audience of 2024. There was not a major star classed as marketable. There was not a major star. The director hasn't won an Oscar nor achieved a box office success since 1992, and nothing visually appeals to a mainstream audience used to superhero visuals. On top of this, quotes from distributors who had seen the film appeared at best mixed, at worst they tore the film apart. One saying, quote, "This is not how Coppola should end his directing career," end quote. Even after eventually securing Lionsgate as a distributor, this did not include paying for marketing, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Okay, so this was really when I started to take notice of what was going on around Megalopolis. Obviously, I eventually went back and researched the events prior to this. It's hard to avoid the fact that this event has really, really shook the marketing campaign for this film to the very core. I think you can see that with the AI trailer that we're going to talk about next, but we'll come on to that. I think it's interesting when you go back to the VFX team being fired, that apparently Coppola was talking about how they were too formulaic and too Marvel inspired, and then with this film he believed that he was going to get $100 million, from a distributor to market this film. What distributor is going to give you $100 million for a film that they can't market to a Marvel audience. And then you come out and bash Marvel films. And you talk about how they're too formulaic and that you didn't want it to look like a Marvel film. So what are they going to market that to? The fact that you're Coppola? How many people watched The Godfather, or The Godfather Part 2, or Apocalypse Now, or even, less critically appealing stuff, such as Dracula? How many of them watched that because, oh, that's Coppola? How many people watched those films in the last 10, 15 years because, oh, Coppola made it? There's not that many people from my generation. I'm 23. How many people are watching that stuff because, oh, it's got Francis Ford Coppola's name on it? Not many. So what convinced him that he was going to get that money? It's almost as if he thinks he's still in the 1970s and hasn't realised that time has moved on. He's not able to do what he was in the past. You can't market a film where the apparently, according to reviews, the best actor in your film is Shia LaBeouf, who is an actor that a lot of people don't like now because of controversies off of screen in his personal relationships. You can't market a film like that and expect everyone to be rushing out because, oh, he put people in that were cancelled because he didn't want it to be seen as a, quote, woke film. You can't do that. So I don't understand the reports that came from this screening that he was surprised and that he was seeking $100 million in marketing. It doesn't make sense other than to say that he's still someone who's living in the past and hasn't realised that he doesn't have that kind of clout anymore. A person who has realised that he doesn't have that kind of clout anymore, and I don't think really cares, he's just more interested in making good films even if they don't make money, is Martin Scorsese. I don't see Martin Scorsese complaining about, oh, Killers of the Flower Moon didn't make a lot of money. He just made Killers of the Flower Moon because he, in interviews, talks about how important that film was to him personally after he heard the story. Now, yes, Scorsese might also complain about Marvel movies. He might say that they're not cinema. But he's not out here seeking $100 million in marketing and then complaining when he doesn't get it. He's not out here still trying to make massive box office successes and then being surprised when distributors don't want to jump onto a project. He's still making films that are up for Oscars, are up for nominations and stuff like that, and Golden Globes. It's really confusing, this sort of thing, to me. And again, this is why with the sexual misconduct stuff, I say, like, we can maybe just put that down to him being an old man, even though that shouldn't be an excuse. Is with this, it feels like he's an old man who just hasn't, he's looking at the trees and he doesn't yet see the woods. He doesn't realise that he's not that guy anymore. And interestingly, again, that's the case with Ronaldo, is that these figures just don't realise it's not your time anymore. Like, you can still do stuff. You can still talk about, oh, I was great 40 years ago. That's fine if that's what you want to do. But you can't continue to command the same sort of respect now because you can't do the stuff that you were able to do 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So it's disappointing to not see him sort of fade with grace. Because again, I feel like Scorsese has done that. In my opinion, he seems to be much more of an educator. He seems to be much more interested in just, I want to make good films that the next generation will be interested in. Even with Killers of the Flower Moon, he, in my opinion, realised how popular true crime was. And, spoilers, I hope everyone's already seen that, because I am going to give it a light spoiler. That film ends with a satire of the true crime genre. But Martin Scorsese isn't out here trying to make a true crime film. He's out here just realizing this is where the industry is. I'm gonna have a little piece of the pie, and then that's it. I don't need to still be that guy. I don't need to be out here making a true crime film, in the current way that they're made, because that's not me. And even, like, you can argue that Killers of the Flower Moon is a true crime film. I would understand that. And to a certain extent, it is a true crime film, but it's not. It's not him appealing to the widest audience possible. It's not him demanding $100 million from a distributor and then getting surprised when he doesn't get it. And even though he did apparently get a very large budget for that film, he got it from Apple with the understanding of, we don't care about money, we just want the awards. And that's what he went for. He went for the awards. He didn't go for a commercially successful film. So I just don't entirely understand what the vision is here from Coppola. But anyways, the final controversy I have here, and this is another major one, was the AI trailer that was released. I believe it was last month now. Oh no, I don't think it was August. I think it might be 2 weeks ago. Sorry. Anyways, having finally secured Lionsgate as the distributor, now came the marketing of the film. In the first trailer for the film, Lawrence Fishburne, who also stars in the film, by the way, performed a voiceover for the film, detailing the past successes of Coppola, coupled with quotes purportedly from acclaimed critics' reviews of Apocalypse Now and The Godfather, among others. However, it was revealed within hours that these quotes had actually been generated by AI, with Lionsgate quickly apologising, firing the marketing consultant who had came up with the quotes, and releasing a quote-free trailer soon after. They have seemingly avoided legal trouble up until now, but this trailer simply muddies the waters even further of what is an already messy project. So we're gonna see more and more as time goes on these AI controversies. So it's not particularly a surprise that this film has one of those. In the past couple of days, we've also seen a report come out that Coppola had asked Amazon to develop technology to allow viewers to ask Adam Driver's character a question on cinema screens. Apparently, that entire crew was laid off by Amazon during budget cuts. That's not. I haven't researched that controversy, so I can't go into that too much. But it does kind of just show that, to me, that Coppola is willing to experiment with new technologies as long as it's within his sort of vision. But with this one, it just feels really dumb. I don't get how someone who has been battling with the Hollywood industry for so long couldn't see how this would be an issue. I don't know how this got through the entire Lionsgate company, and then through Francis Ford Coppola and his people surrounded by him, unless literally everyone is a yes man within the company and with surrounding Coppola. It's an extremely dumb decision, and I'm not at all surprised that this got pulled within hours. The only thing I am really surprised by is, given that the trailer included the names of critics, and it also included some of the papers that these people wrote for. I'm sort of surprised that no one has actually attempted to sue either Lionsgate or Coppola personally. I would consider it sort of an ode to the future, this trailer, because I do think that this is just going to be more of what we see as time goes on. I talked in my Alien Romulus review about the use of AI on one of the characters' faces then. I actually think in comparison with that film, I actually think comparing Alien Romulus with this film, I actually think Alien Romulus does practically nothing wrong, because at least in that case, they got the permission of Ian Holmes' estate to use his facial features. With this, it was just blanket lying. So I just keep going back to, and I feel like I've done this for 40 minutes now, is I'm just dumbfounded. I don't get who signed off on this, and I don't get how none of them thought that this was a dumb idea. And I also hate this idea that they needed to they needed to fire the marketing consultant, as if this was just his decision. That all it takes to put out a trailer for one of the biggest movies of the year for your company is a marketing consultant saying, yeah, this is fine, when clearly that isn't true. I'm not sure how many people within Lionsgate will have seen the film, but I can guarantee it wasn't just him, and that Coppola himself will have personal, contacts within Lionsgate who will have looked at it before he's seen it and then gone, yeah, this is fine, and then have shown it to him and his people and gone, oh yeah, this is fine, we're fine with this. So I don't get, like, it's really worrying to me that this was signed off on, because what does that say about the film? What was allowed to pass in the film that they decided was fine, or maybe even knew wasn't fine, but didn't want to upset Coppola because, oh well, he might pull his film from us, and we want to be in on this, even though, given the box office projections, that seems like a massive mistake from Lionsgate. Why was there no one just saying, like, maybe this isn't a good idea, maybe we need to change this, take these quotes out? And it took them, I believe it was like 4 or 5 hours to pull the trailer and issue an apology. Why does it take you 5 hours after the trailer to apologize, but the weeks or the months that you've been working on the trailer, you didn't realize that it will be an issue then? So it's with this entire project, I just feel a bit dumbfounded, because I'm sat here recording a near 45-minute video, and I'm an idiot, and even I can see that these were going to turn out to be fucking problems. So how couldn't he? How couldn't anyone who worked for him? How couldn't anyone at Lionsgate? And I don't want to get it wrong. The guy who made that decision, the marketing consultant who got fired, he's also an idiot. I don't think necessarily he should be fired, but you're an idiot for thinking that was a good idea. And a lot of these people, I'm looking at them going, how did you decide that this was a good idea? It doesn't make any sense. And I think that people like that need to be held accountable for really, really poor financial decisions such as this. And it doesn't bode well. And I don't think anything that I've talked about so far in this bodes well. But to come on to that point, let me just add this in here. Box office projections for the film do not appear positive. Pessimists estimate between $4 to $5 million domestically, and optimists estimate $6 to $8 million domestically. Reviews are not much better, with Rotten Tomatoes currently sitting at 54%. So even if you remove, the controversy around the VFX team, the decades of development on and off, the sexual misconduct allegations, the AI, and then whatever else that we haven't heard about, nothing actually about the film indicates that this is good, or at the very least that there's consensus around this being a good film. It appears that 54% still thought it was good, which is, it's on the majority side, but it's not great. And the box office projections, again, just indicate what I was talking about before. How do you market to a Marvel audience, which is the mainstream audience, and then bash Marvel movies, make your movie not formulaic, have nothing that looks like Marvel, and then expect it to sell? If the marketing was 100 million, and we know that the budget for the film itself was also 100 million, you've got to make what, 400 million for this to be a success, and instead he'll probably be lucky to make 20 at this rate. So it's extremely worrying. I do also want to add on just on the end about the box office. When you look at Lionsgate's 2024, it's not good whatsoever. Even when you look at other stuff, I think there's been one major commercial success. So the numbers I have is Miller's Girl, which was the Martin Freeman and Jenna Ortega, weird sort of fantasy movie. I didn't see it. Sexual fantasy movie, not like Lord of the Rings. I mean, that had a reported budget of $4 million, and it grossed domestically $300,000, which is atrocious. Borderlands had $110 million budget, and globally up to now it's made $30 million dollars. So that's an $80 million loss on top of the marketing. The Hollywood Reporter reported that The Crow had a budget of $50 million, and it's made $21 million in the box office. And then Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes made $348 million, and then the budget was $100 million. So that is a success. It's not all doom and gloom from Lionsgate. That final one probably saves a couple people's jobs, because the other ones are such a terrible mistake. I actually think if you're looking at just those films themselves, I think the Hunger Games movie will mean that they probably turn out a profit, but I'm not sure it's a massive profit. I would have to really crunch the numbers, but even if it's a profit, it's not good. So I'm not entirely surprised, to be honest, that Lionsgate ended up with Megalopolis, because it seems like that company and Francis Ford Coppola just go hand in hand of making terrible financial decisions. I don't have much else to say. I think I can probably end with a note that I've put here, which is Francis Ford Coppola for decades has been notoriously difficult to work with. He's old school. He comes from the new Hollywood era of him, Scorsese, William Friedkin, that sort of class of director. He's obviously a pre-Me Too director. He's even pre-feminist 1990s cinema. So it's not entirely surprising to me that there was so much division among the cast and crew as a result of his personality and his directing style. There's other stuff I haven't mentioned in here about, reports of him just sitting in his trailer for half a day, smoking weed and not doing any work. And as a result, no one else was able to do work. It's not a surprise that he's had these issues. It's just sort of... It's a bit disappointing that someone who said in the 2000s, when he was stepping away from directing for a while, in order to become a student of the craft rather than the teacher, it's a bit worrying that he hasn't learned anything. It's worrying and disappointing that he hasn't learned that you can't just, in the 2024, even if it used to be acceptable in the 60s and 70s, you can't just go up to cast and crew members and just start kissing and hugging them and pulling them into yourself. You can't do that. You can't use AI. You can't just fire an entire department and not expect pushback. You can't walk up to a distributor and expect $100 million in marketing and then not expect your film to have to pander to the Marvel audience. That's what you have to do now to sell that. So this project, it's extremely worrying. Even if the film was good, I feel like it's gonna go down as one of the biggest ever flops commercially. And as that distributor said to the Hollywood Reporter, this isn't how Coppola should be ending his career. Whether that be as someone getting accused and seemingly proven to be a sexual pervert, whether that be someone using technology that he shouldn't because it's accusing people of calling his films bad when they didn't, whether that be firing entire departments and making PR messes and taking away the attention from his film. He's ending, as a result of his own failures, he's ending his career quite poorly, and I think we would all prefer that he went out vastly different to how he's making it, or how he's making himself go out as a result of his own failures and his own stupid decisions, because he needs the attention on him, seemingly, from his quotes. I can't say personally, but he just seems to have an ego where he needs to have the camera on him rather than be behind it. Hey everyone, thank you for watching if you got this far into the video. If you didn't get this far, then thank you also. Please check out some other videos on the channel and check out the Twitter. Everything is linked below in the description. Thank you for any and all support that you can give. It's appreciated, and I hope that you found something interesting in this video. Take care.